Welcome back. We're taking a live look at the big board this morning. The Dow, we know, is up this morning, rebounding after comments by President Trump and his Commerce Secretary seem to have calmed investors' fears. Trump says he has no intention of firing Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. And the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent hinted yesterday that de-escalation with China on the trade front could be coming. Now, this morning, Bessent spoke before the Institute of International Finance, where he touched on some of his critiques of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. Listen.
Like the IMF, the World Bank must be made fit for purpose again. But the bank, like the IMF, has strayed in certain respects from its initial mission. The bank should no longer expect blank checks for vapid, buzzword-centric marketing accompanied by half-hearted commitments to reform. As the bank returns to its core mission, it must use its resources as efficiently and effectively as possible.
All right, let's get to CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, what else did you hear, or what else stood out to you from what the Treasury Secretary just said?
Well, I'm glad you played that soundbite, Mugo, because I think one of the most interesting things was that he did choose to criticize the IMF and the World Bank just as these institutions are having their spring meeting right in Washington, D.C. Three things, though, that really stood out to me that I want to highlight for you. That even though he did criticize them, I'll read you a quote. He said, "I wish to be clear, America First does not mean America alone. To the contrary, it's a call for deeper collaboration and mutual respect. Far from stepping back, America First seeks to expand U.S. leadership in international institutions like the IMF and World Bank." So I think there was criticism, but also an emphasis that if things change, this is not America stepping back from the table. America just wants to rebalance trade. That was a word you heard him say a lot. The other two things I want to highlight, he says over 100 countries have come to the table with the intent to negotiate or put forth proposals. Of course, we have not seen any concrete trade deals yet, but that number of countries does continue to seems to continue to grow. And he also addressed China and sort of emphasized the comments that you heard from the president yesterday in the Oval, that there is a deal to be made. But again, Mugo, the markets are up today. Those comments do seem, from what we heard from Bessent, to align with what we heard yesterday, but still no concrete deals on the table right now.
And I'm sure there's so much that you could probably speak to on this, Kelly, but I'm always surprised by just how much a little comment here and there can move or shake the markets. It's just so interesting to me. All right. Something else that we know is raising eyebrows is the European Union just slapped hefty fines on U.S. tech giants Apple and Meta. So what's all this about?
So this wasn't unexpected. There's something called the Digital Markets Act in the European Union, and they take a much harder line towards tech companies than we do here in the U.S. And so what they sort of have come to determine is that Meta and Apple have violated that act. Together, they're going to be forced to pay over $800 million in U.S. dollars in terms of fines. And what they're saying is that Meta illegally required users to either share their data or have to pay for an ad-free service, that sort of trade-off, that choice was an illegal one, and that Apple didn't properly inform their users of different opportunities available outside of Apple's App Store. Now, the specifics of it, that's one thing, the fine, sure, but I think what's really interesting here is whether this elicits any response from the White House or sort of any development in this trade war. Because remember, the president has not just said that this is about tariffs, but also about certain things that prevent American companies from operating in other countries. So something to watch there.
Yeah, we'll see if the president has something to say about this one. Okay, we are getting a look at Tesla's first quarter earnings report. What is the takeaway from all of this, and how is Elon Musk responding?
Okay, so they missed on the top and the bottom line, and their automobile revenue was 20% lower than last year. That wasn't unexpected. We know that Tesla has been having trouble with their sales and their brand. The big takeaway, though, was not about the numbers in the report last night. It was what Elon Musk said on the call, that he plans to scale back his time at Doge starting next month. That is certainly something that investors wanted to hear. They want to hear him focusing on Tesla. That's partially why the stock is up today, even though they did have that big miss on their earnings report. And then the other thing that I think was interesting was he said that he has made it clear to the president that he doesn't think high tariffs are a good idea, even though Tesla is one of the best auto companies poised to get around that tariffs because they assemble their cars in the U.S. But I found that interesting on the call last night when I was listening, that there was just an admission that he doesn't align with everything with President Trump, Mugo.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Very interesting. Kelly O'Grady, as always, thank you for joining us in 24/7.